Hi, I'm Coder, and I'm going to be talking about how to memorize the unit circle, particularly when it's something pi over 3, something pi over 6, and something pi over 4. Okay, so what I do is that I memorize 12 different numbers. Whenever I'm dealing with pi over 3, I remember 1, 2, 4, and 5. Whenever I'm dealing with pi over 6, I remember 1, 5, 7, 11. And whenever I'm dealing with pi over 4, I remember 1, 3, 5, 7. And these aren't completely random. There's an easy way to remember them. So whenever you're dealing with pi over 3, notice that 2 is the number to the left of 3, and 4 is the number to the right of 3. And it's the same with the rest of them. 5 is to the left of 6, and 7 is to the right of 6. 3 is to the left of 4, and 5 is to the right of 4. And for pi over 4, each number increases by 2. So you can just remember 1 and count by 2s. So you might be saying, what do these numbers stand for? So each number represents a quadrant. So 1 would be quadrant 1, 2 would be quadrant 2, 4 would be quadrant 3, and 5 would be quadrant 4. And why would you want to know the quadrants? That helps you know if your answer is negative or positive, and we'll get into that later. And then you also have to memorize two triangles. So whenever you're dealing with pi over 3 or pi over 6, you need to memorize this triangle. So the hypotenuse will be 1, the longer side will be the square root of 3 over 2, and the shorter side will be 1/2. And then whenever you deal with pi over 4, you'll make a triangle, and remember these two sides are the same length, and square root of 2 over 2, square root of 2 over 2, and the hypotenuse will be 1. That's what you've got to memorize. Let's do an example. Let's find sine of 7 pi over 6. So the first thing we want to do is remember the four numbers that revolve around 6. And those were 1, 5, 7, 11. Now let's look at the top number. The top number is 7. That is the third number, which means we are in the third quadrant. So now let's draw the third quadrant. Now, what kind of triangle do we want to draw? Okay, since it's something over 6, the long side of the triangle is going to be on the x-axis. Conversely, if you had a 3 in the denominator, you would have the short side on the x-axis. So now let's label this triangle. The long side is the square root of 3 over 2, but it's negative there. Then negative half, then 1. So sine deals with the y-axis, so our answer is negative 1/2. Let's do another example. Let's find cosine of 5 pi over 3. Okay, so we just have to find the four numbers first. 1, 2, 4, 5. Then we look at the top number, that's 5. That is the fourth number. So that means that we are in the fourth quadrant. So now let's draw our picture. How are we going to draw the triangle? Since we have a 3 in the denominator, that means that the short side is going to be on the x-axis. Since cosine deals with the x-axis, our answer is half. Let's do another one. Let's solve cosine of 3 pi over 4. So we have to write the four numbers again. 1, 3, 5, 7. We have a 3 in the denominator. That is the second number in the list. So we are in quadrant 2. Now, what triangle do we draw? Since we have a 4, we draw a different triangle this time. Since cosine deals with the x-axis, our answer would be negative square root of 2 over 2. Let's do one with tangent now. Let's solve tangent of 2 pi over 3. Whoa, what do we do now? It's tangent. So don't forget that tangent of 2 pi over 3 is equal to sine of 2 pi over 3 divided by cosine of 2 pi over 3. So now we have to solve for both of those, but that's not too hard. So first step is to find our four numbers, which in this case are 1, 2, 4, and 5. We have a 2 in the numerator, so that means we are in the second quadrant. Not because it's 2, but because it's the second number on the list. And now we draw our picture. And since we have a 3 in the denominator, the short side is on the x-axis. Negative half, square root of 3 over 2, 1. Okay, so sine of 2 pi over 3 is equal to the square root of 3 over 2. And cosine of 2 pi over 3 is equal to negative half. And you would just simplify. So our answer would be the negative square root of 3. But you could have done it even simpler. If you're willing to memorize more things, you can solve way faster. So tangent of pi over 6 is equal to the square root of 3 over 3. Tangent at pi over 3 is equal to the square root of 3. And tangent at pi over 4 is equal to 1. So this one, the bottom one, you can just memorize. And this is how I remember the first two. 3 plus 3 is equal to 6. So you have two 3's, and 3 plus 3 is 6. And the pi over 3 one I just remember because they're both 3. So now let's... Oh, and something else. but your answer will vary depending on like what quadrant you are in. If you're in the first quadrant, both sine and cosine are positive. And if you're in the third quadrant, both sine and cosine are negative. So tangent will always be positive in these quadrants. But that's not true for quadrant 2 and 4, because in quadrant 2, cosine is negative, but sine is positive. And in quadrant 4, sine is negative, but cosine is positive. So, plus, minus, plus, minus. Let's go back to our tangent problem and see how we could have done this differently. So, we would have said, okay, we have tangent at 2 pi over 3. Okay, it's a pi over 3 question. So the answer is the square root of 3. But what quadrant are you in? So we would have written the four numbers, 1, 2, 4, 5. We would have been like, oh, we're in the second quadrant. And because of that, our answer is negative. But I would personally forget that, so I'm always going to do it this way. But this way is easier. And that's it. Thank you for watching.